Assalamu alaikum.
Well, assalamu alaikum, everybody. Wa alaikum assalam. Jordan, how are you?
Not bad. We're seeing each other a lot, Abbas.
Alhamdulillah. In fact, we've, mashallah, seen each other more during the isolation period than actually we used to see each other before, mashallah.
Mashallah.
Alhamdulillah.
So today, HK, Hansa Stone, A. Ahmed, Shush, somebody, Rashid. Yeah, good to see everybody here. So yeah, Abbas, I don't know if you want to start off with. So we obviously got Sabor coming on Friday. First thing probably to mention is the time change, isn't it? The fact that it's going to be 5:30. It was originally scheduled for 2, but it changed to 5:30. So make sure you adjust your diaries around that, because I don't think it's going to be missed.
Yeah, inshallah. I really wanted to invite Sabur on because he's got a real wealth of knowledge when it comes to evolution and evolutionary science and cosmology. He's really very, very good on those subjects. And often people do ask these questions about evolution or about the universe, and he's definitely the person to ask these type of questions to. So I think it'd be a really interesting stream. So I really do invite people to sort of, inshallah, come tomorrow at 5:30 and try and, inshallah, help us to expand the stream to as many people as possible. Mashallah, we've got plenty of time at the moment. Most of us are obviously stuck in our homes and are likely to be for at least another 2 or 3 weeks. So let's make the most of it, inshallah ta'ala. And as I say, Sabur is a really, mashallah, knowledgeable guy when it comes to cosmology and evolution. So if you've got any questions, get them ready, inshallah. And it'd be a real pleasure to see him tomorrow and ask him some questions, inshallah.
Yeah, hopefully we'll get some Q&A at the end of it. I think for me, Abbas, the thing with evolution is it's often used as a tool, people trying to disprove God by evolution, and we're talking at a basic level, and people generally feel that. But obviously Sabor, mashallah, goes through all of the different types of evolution. Much of the evolution doesn't even contradict what we believe. And the other thing was the philosophy of science, which I know you're going to ask a couple of questions on as well.
Yeah, because we sort of, as a layperson, I always assumed, you just did science and that was it, and that gave you all the answers, and that's what I felt, that's what I thought, but I think it's a lot more complicated than that, actually. How do we understand knowledge, and how do we interpret knowledge, and actually even science, it's depending upon the spectacles that you wear, the way in which you approach it, you can actually end up with quite contradictory or different opinions. So the same data, as I was saying to you earlier, the same data can have 2 people with quite different views or opinions about the data, and sometimes the ideas can be really very different. So clearly there is an element of how do we interpret science and how do we sort of approach it. So it's interesting, actually. So yeah, inshallah, it'll be quite interesting for me as well to sort of hear what he has to say about the subject. So yeah, as I said, I hope, inshallah, all the brothers and sisters can join us tomorrow. I think it'll be a very, very fruitful discussion, inshallah, God willing, inshallah ta'ala.
Inshallah. So I think we're going to sort of go through perhaps a couple of debates he had as well. We're talking about the Aaron Ra debate, Speaker's Corner, perhaps, and a couple of others.
Yeah, so recently he's had some really good discussions. One in particular was the Aaron Ra one. He's an atheist. He's very, very much an advocate for the theory of evolution in its very sort of traditional sense, let's say, of, chimp ancestry. And he's quite a poster boy for the atheists. So he had a really good discussion with him at Speaker's Corner. And actually, I really think Sabur did really, really well. And again, it was more upon the understanding of the philosophy of science, which hopefully Sabur will go into tomorrow in some depth, which is fascinating for me as well, to be honest, very interesting. And he had a discussion which was prior to that, I think. And again, very interesting. I think it was either just prior or just after. He said a couple of discussions with Phil, Skydive Phil, again at the park. And I wanted to just sort of ask him a few things about that discussion as well, because I sort of noted some things that went on with Skydive Phil, and EFDawah have had a couple of discussions with Skydive Phil as well. Again, he's a very clever guy, very very well read, and he's not a scientist, but he certainly he interviews a lot of scientists and has done a lot of work. And I think he was saying that he has contributed to some papers, I think, or at least one paper that was published in a scientific journal. So he's not a novice. He does know his stuff, I think, And it was a very interesting discussion, and I just wanted to ask a couple of things about that as well. And because ultimately what you find, Jordan, is that most people who tend to, lose their belief in a creator, or don't believe in one to start with, they tend to cite the
Abbas, you're under the sea again, I'm afraid. Let's see if we can get Abbas back. My apologies. Let's see what we've got in the meantime. No Q&A. There will be a Q&A. Me and Abbas have only come online now, really, just to let you guys know about tomorrow's stream. Not a stream to be missed. I mean, my personal sort of view of evolution, I looked into it. I mean, obviously, we all learn it at school, like it's a fact, and I think you just kind of accept that we all came, we all evolved across species from, whether once we were fish. To be honest, it never really made much sense to me. But I mean, I've looked into various. We've lost Abbas a bit. Obviously, we have speciation, we have adaptation. I know Sabor, the stuff I've heard him talk about Darwinism, and by the way, he has a channel, Darwinian Delusions, I believe it's called. So make sure you subscribe to support Sabor. I think, like us, he's putting out a lot of streams, and he is putting a lot of effort into the streams over the lockdown, kind of taking advantage of it. So let's see. Yeah, Brother Abbas needs to read the, is it 3 calls, Ayatul Kursi, and then blew some air on it. Did you do the 3 calls?
Assalamu alaikum. Yeah, sorry about that.
That's all right.
It's still about 8. It's actually, it has improved. The connection is still a lot better, but from time to time, occasionally it just suddenly drops to really low, and then it goes great again, But 3, I had a long discussion telling me they're going to sort it out. There's a new antenna.
All right, Abbas, gone under the sea again. Okay.
Yeah, hopefully.
You're back.
Yeah. No, hopefully. I mean, I've got a good connection on my mobile, which I'm tethering off, which is fine. But even that's sometimes a little bit suspect. But it's certainly still a lot. I think it's a lot better. So you've got the questions with you, so it won't be a complete disaster. Hopefully, inshallah.
Let's see. Some of the questions must are good in terms of, because again, you hear people separating science and Islam, for instance, like they're not compatible, like they are something completely different. But you hear, I've heard many people talk about science bringing them closer in their religious beliefs.
Oh, I think it's brought me closer, definitely. the more I learned about the universe, and the more I learned about just how incredibly infinitesimally small are, for there to be a universe that could actually sustain life, it actually made me believe in Allah and believe in a creator even more, because for me, the chances of it happening simply randomly by chance. I mean, one of the statistics I heard was that if you just get the law of gravity, the cosmological constant, which is the rate at which the universe expands, and the nuclear forces between electrons, and if you just look at the three variables on these measurements, how precise they have to be, for those variables to randomly reach those very precise levels, the chances of that are one atom in the entire known universe. That's the probability of it happening by chance. Okay, now that is just looking at three things: the force of gravity, the cosmological constant, and the nuclear forces of atoms, and how electrons and how much force they have to hold them effectively together. Okay, and just those three, it doesn't take into consideration all of the other factors. There's some 40 different apparently major laws that also need to have that level of precision for there to be life in the universe. Okay, and so when I studied these things, actually it made me believe in a creator even more, because the flip side, obviously, of it being random and it happening by chance is that it wasn't random, and that it wasn't chance, and something was responsible for measuring out those things to that precision to enable life to be able to, human life to even exist in the universe. Okay. And so, so science for me actually is a wonderful thing. It's an amazing subject. I love watching programs about astronomy and about physics and learning as much as I can. I'm not. I wouldn't say I was well versed or well learned within science. I'd love to be, but I'm not. But what little I do learn and I know, I do find it very inspiring, very much. In fact, when we see something that's that amazing, we're supposed to say Subhanallah, aren't we? We're supposed to recognize the creator. And Allah does say in the Quran that, we will show them from within themselves and from the furthest horizons. And science actually is showing us now from the furthest horizons that it couldn't have been any other way, that it needed a creator. One of the other things, Jordan, I heard is a really interesting statistic, and it was, if you got a ruler and you spread it for the entire length of the universe, okay, so you had this ruler, and it was divided up in inches, but it was 14.3 billion light years across. Okay, so it took light to travel from one end to the other end 14.3 billion years. And on that scale, if you move the force of gravity just by 1 inch on that scale, there'd be no life in the universe. Yeah. We wouldn't be here.
You're sort of talking about the fine-tuning argument almost.
Right. Right.
Yeah, and I think for me, I definitely agree with you on that one. And for me, I think even before becoming Muslim, I've never took the position that this all came from nothing. I just can't. And to be honest, it's not something I did philosophy A level, but when I converted to Islam, it's a lot of atheists putting these arguments across, and you hear about people who are impressed with guys like Lawrence Krauss and people like that. And I've started to read some of their stuff. And Lawrence Krauss talks about three types of nothing, and if you describe nothing, then it becomes something, and within this thing there is dark matter, and I try my best to try and understand what they're saying. And to me, because obviously religious people believe, atheists believe religious people are in illusion, but to me, it's almost like me believing that if I said to you, Abbas, tomorrow morning, there's going to be, I'm going to come downstairs, and there's going to be all these metal particles that are going to come out of nowhere. All these rubber particles are going to make tires. These metal particles are all going to come and make a car. And I'm going to have a car all made from nothing, and I'm going to drive to work. That's almost how I would see somebody saying that this came from nothing. You have to believe that not only did something come from nothing, but something was created. And obviously, we're talking about a universe, not even a car. I mean, the thought of a car being created like that just seems abnormal, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. And and so, they come up with this argument that, well, we're only talking about it because we're here, and if we weren't here, we wouldn't be talking about it. Therefore, it could have still happened by chance, but it just so happens that it happened by chance, and we're here alive, and that's why we're able to talk about it. The question here is that you can't look at things in that way. I think that's a wrong way to look at things. The fact is that we are here, and it was infinitesimally small probabilities if one was to deal with the randomness as to why we're here, and therefore that does require an explanation. And when people who don't believe in a creator, and they say that there's some material cause or there's some non-theistic origin, okay, but that's a belief then, isn't it?
It is a belief.
You're basically believing something on the basis that you have no evidence for. You're just assuming it must be that way because you don't want to accept the fact that there could have been a creator that could have created everything.
And I think it's also a belief in. See, we obviously believe in our creator and the guidance, but I almost feel that a lot of these atheists that are talking about. Whether it's evolution or even other things, I feel, and I've heard people say, these guys are very smart. These guys are very intelligent. So we should take their arguments. And I don't really see that any different. Well, I see it different because I see you're putting your faith into a man as opposed to, I mean, you don't know what agendas these people have either. You don't know what their personal life is that made them lead to atheism. I mean, that's a different topic because I do believe there is a link to atheism and people's sort of loss of respect for their father and things like that. I'm reading this book at the moment, fascinating. But yeah,
there's a lot of studies. You're right.
There's a lot of studies to suggest that atheists, and look, it's not for everybody, but generally there's a resentment towards a father figure or God. Even Freud completely hated his father, and so they developed this kind of this resentment towards a God. So that's why when you hear an atheist almost disrespectfully talking about a sky daddy, as opposed to just, arguing on a level, you sense a resentment there almost, don't you?
Yeah, and also there's the scientific studies actually that I think at Oxford University, and I think Sabur can maybe fill us in on the study, but there's definitely a study that was done, quite an extensive study, an international study. Thousands of children were actually, I think, interviewed and studied on this point. And they found out that there was a natural, intuitive inclination and belief in children of a higher existence, of a higher being. And actually, atheism was an acquired position that came afterwards. And it's interesting because that's really the Islamic view as well. We believe that everybody's born with a pure fitra, a pure intuitive, a pure intuition, a predisposition to believe in a creator. And we believe in Islam. There's a lot of, mashallah, a lot of things in the Quran, a lot of things in Hadith that actually say then the parents or the society, they actually transform this individual into believing different things, multiple gods, or end up taking this atheistic position. It's an acquired position. It's not a fundamental position. It's not the default position, as it were, the original position. The original position is of purity, where they actually believe in a higher being. That is then taken away through the social conditioning, or family, friends, whatever, of society. So yeah, it's very interesting. And I think the other thing, of course, is that it doesn't take, I think, a very clever person, quite frankly, to realize that if something is infinitesimally on a probability curve, if it's infinitesimally unlikely to have happened in a particular way, then you would have to concede that the other option of it coming into existence by a design, by a creator who willed it and proportioned it into existence makes, and what I find, of course, is that this is very clever, because the atheist often says that, but we're not saying that we know, we're saying that we simply don't know. We're agnostic on the whole issue. And it's for you to prove that there is a God, that there is a creator. But, when you talk about proving the metaphysical, science has no dog in the race. Science deals with observation, right? Things that you can observe and experiment with. It does not deal with things that on the metaphysical level, which are unseen. These are philosophical arguments. These are different arguments. There's a different criteria, a different yardstick to measure the argument, as it were. You cannot use science to measure everything. Science is not the truth to all things. It tells us how the world works, okay? It tells us how maybe the human body works or how medicine works. It doesn't tell us why we're here. That's the difference. It doesn't tell us the why. It doesn't tell us the where we're going after we die, because that is the unseen. That's a different argument. It's a different yardstick that you have to use to measure those things, I think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. So in terms of Sabor's kind of expertise, fairly new to watching his stuff, actually. But so would you say evolution and atheism are his two sort of top topics that he covers?
Well, mashallah, he's pretty much an all-rounder. He's a very, mashallah, very, very clever, very articulate chap. But certainly when it comes to evolution and what the different types and models of evolution are, what the mainstream scientific community currently believe and accept, and how their views actually on many aspects are very different. He's very, very good at that, really very knowledgeable about that. And also the cosmology as well. Clearly he's read up on things quite well, and he studied very well. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's studying the philosophy of science, if I'm not mistaken. So he's doing that formally. But I do listen to him quite a lot, because I think he's on a different level. I really do. And I think that the viewers, inshallah, will really benefit from his knowledge, because as I say, people like myself, we just sort of blabber on, but he's very academic. And, if some people have got really deep academic, far-reaching questions, I think he's definitely the man to, inshallah, to tackle those, because he's mashallah very good on that front. So, so I think it's going to be, inshallah, as long as my broadband holds up, hopefully.
I've got a question for you, actually, Abbas. How effective do you feel, debating on evolution in detail, philosophy? How effective is that in terms of Dawa?
Well, I think the importance of it is actually because the reality is, Jordan, most people actually don't understand the subject, and I would probably put myself in that position. Okay. Because often because the depth of science, when it comes to things like evolution, or even cosmology, mathematics, and physics, these are often very difficult for people like myself, or perhaps average people out there, to really understand, fully. And I think the other thing is that people don't understand that there are a lot of nuances within those arguments, that they're not clear cut, set in stone. They're fluid, and they are actually transformed as the information changes, as our knowledge changes, our ideas change. And that there are different views out there. And often what happens is with people, lay people, who are atheists, and they try to use evolution as a tool, let's say, to bludgeon the believer, what they end up doing often is actually they misquote concepts within evolution because they haven't truly understood it themselves. And I think that's why when, for example, Subud had a discussion with what's his name? I can't remember his name now, actually. It's a middle-aged sort of white guy. He wears a cap. I can't remember. At the park. I think he's from New Zealand or Australia. He's got a New Zealand or Australian accent. I don't know if you remember. But Subud was asking him questions, and he was quoting things about evolution. But Subud was just trying to explain to him that he didn't know what he was talking about, And the point here is that when people who are atheists and they say that people of religion tend to be blind followers and they just accept what they've been told by their sheikh or by their teacher, or or by what they perceive to be God or their prophet or prophets or whatever, but they're not critical in their thinking. Actually, you'll find that most atheists don't understand the scientific arguments for the very basis of their atheism. And so they'll use arguments that they've just rehashed, they've heard of others, without even fully understanding the nuances of those arguments. So in reality, you have blind following in religion, no doubt. I would accept that there are people, many people, in fact, who follow religions blindly because they don't challenge their beliefs, they don't challenge their thoughts, they're not critical in thinking. Perhaps they're not even interested to find out whether they're even following things correctly or incorrectly. They just, because my dad did it, my parents did it, my family did it, that's what I'm going to do. So I agree, it does exist. Of course, there are a lot of other people within religion who are very critical in terms of trying to do things properly and really establishing their beliefs as to where their beliefs are coming from and what grounds they have for believing what they believe, right? But equally, you find a lot of people who are atheists, actually, who simply jump on the bandwagon of a lot of these arguments that atheists use, many of which are very weak or actually ill thought out or factually actually incorrect. And so they also are blindly following things. In other words, what people do, and this is a trait that people have, is that, and it happens within religion and outside religion as well. So people already have a predisposition to believe a certain thing, and then they only look for confirmation bias. They only look for things that reinforce their views, you see. So, for example, an atheist might send out posts about people of religion doing wacky, crazy, things, right? I don't know, dancing with snakes or something. They might post videos out of the deep South in America of Christian evangelical Christians, dancing with snakes and then getting bitten and then having to be rushed to the hospital. They might send out videos like that, okay, to mock. But then there might be a huge number of Christians out there, for example, who might be very law-abiding, very decent, very charitable. They may be very honest. They may be very kind. And that might be the bulk of practicing Christians, right? Putting their theology aside, of course, we disagree with certain aspects of their theology, but obviously they're not interested in those Christians, you see, or they're not interested in those Muslims.
I think that was where my point was going. Is look, mashallah, the brothers that are doing the academic side of evolution, things like that, mashallah, it's great to learn from it. But I feel, in terms of Dawa, so I don't see many people in the short time I've been Muslim coming to Islam through being debated on evolution, or cause you find it getting into an argument where neither side can prove, and neither side are really going to change their position on it.
Yes.
Whereas obviously, you know, Islam, we have the message, which I find obviously things like Tawheed and things like that. I see those things actually, and look, we believe Allah puts it in your heart, but I see those things really connecting with people. Whereas these kind of, you know, these debates on such intricate things, like, you know, and getting deep into it, I think what it does do, it strengthens our beliefs and our faiths as Muslims. But I'm talking about, I haven't seen it effective in a Dawa. It'd be good.
No, I think so. You're probably quite right, Jordan. But you know what it does do is that when certain Muslims, for example, start having doubts about their religion because they believe that either you believe in evolution, Darwinian evolution, common ancestry, common chimp ancestry, either you believe in that or you believe in God. And so some of them naively, I think, don't study the subject and realize the nuances that are out there. And some of them end up leaving Islam because of this wrong interpretation of this subject matter. And so I think what it does do is it presents those nuances and explains that actually, you know, there are many nuances to this argument. And so, for example, I spoke to Phil, and Phil is very hot on this subject of evolution. And I said, look, Phil, I heard a scholar who said that we accept everything that existed that we have evidence for. So whether we have Neanderthal, whether we have, you know, things that looked almost human or whatever, okay, we accept that those things existed, okay? Now, exactly what they were, how they were, you know, this is still, science is still interpreting a lot of that data. But let's say, for argument's sake, we agree with their view that these things existed as they are saying they existed. We believe that God created Adam, and we believe that God placed Adam within that line of events, within that chain of events, at a time that he chose. Okay, I said, how would science be able to prove or disprove that? And he turned around and he said, you can't prove that or disprove that. And I said, that's exactly my point, you see. My point is how God chose to place Adam within a chain of events. God hasn't specified that. But all God said, all Allah said, is that he created Adam and fashioned him from clay or from dust. Okay? So for us to argue that somehow evolution, evolution somehow means that you don't have to accept a creator. I said, how does evolution disprove the how the universe came into existence, or how life originated? You know, or how evolution itself, how the series of events were set up. How does it disprove the? And he said to me, it doesn't. I think the problem is this, though. You see, the problem is when people start saying either you accept evolution as they believe it to be, Darwinian evolution, common ancestry from a chimp, and that we human beings have come from a chimp. Either you accept that, or you accept God, but you can't have both. And I think that's the wrong argument, quite frankly, because I don't believe you have to make a choice. I believe that you can believe that things existed that were almost human, that looked like they were human, almost human, but they were not human. But Adam was the first human, and God placed him when God chose to place him on earth. And this cause was not a naturalistic, but a metaphysical cause, a cause that was originated from a creator, This was a miracle. We don't regard this as some physical chain of events to bring Adam into existence. We believe that Adam was created by God and placed with it. What I'm trying to say to you, Jordan, is that there are these nuances of the argument, you see, but some Muslims who study Dawkins, they study these books, they're convinced in evolution as Dawkins would like us to believe. And as a consequence, they end up leaving Islam, which I don't believe they need to do. And that's where Sabur actually comes in. And that's where Sabur, I think, is very, very good in saying that it's not either or. There are many different models. There's many different ways of looking at this. And the philosophy of science and the way that you look at knowledge and how you understand knowledge, all of these things actually have an impact. And in fact, what's happening is people are trying to deny all of those things, make it a very black and white issue. And they've lost the nuances, they've lost the gray area, as it were. And as a consequence, I mean, to be honest, a lot of people who have left religion, whether it's Christianity, Islam, Judaism, or whatever, you'll find most of them will bring up the evolution argument as a justification for leaving. And when you probe them about the nuances within evolution, I mean, if you were to probe me about the nuances on evolution, they would be staggered. They wouldn't be able to really engage on that subject in any depth. You'll find maybe 1 in 100 or 1 in 1,000 even who'd actually really know his stuff.
Would you say that's probably evidence, similar to, I believe, what Ray would just say, it's probably evidence to, there's probably some other reason as to why they're leaving Islam, but they see these arguments and they latch onto them.
I agree.
They see them in prints, they see them at Speaker's Corner, they see these really intellectual arguments, they go, wow, well, yeah, they almost cling on to those, because you need an element of faith, as Ray said, in both, because there's no evidence for that either. So, because what was interesting about the extremism we had on yesterday, was it yesterday? Losing track of the days in lockdown. It was there's no evidence for Islam. But the Big Bang Theory sounds good. So it's it's kind of cherry picking things out of the sky, and I feel like there's some underlying. But I agree with you. Look, I'm definitely not saying we shouldn't be academically. I mean, for one thing, it proves that Islam is rational, is academic as well. It's not just a belief in God and you ignore everything else. And Islam, in my mind, has the answers to everything. Whereas even, I mean, I really like Skydive Phil. I enjoy I like his manner, but he always at the end seems to be resorted to, I don't know. And while some people may say, well, that's, at least he's honest, he doesn't know. I think in this world, you have to take a leap of faith one way or the other. You have to evaluate the evidence, and there has to be some kind of leap of faith, not just, I don't know. I'm not saying you take a leap of faith without evidence, but you go to where the strongest evidence is.
I totally agree with you. In fact, that's a very good point. I totally agree with you, because ultimately our analysis of reality, or like I was saying to brother yesterday, the brother who left Islam, Ray, was it Ray yesterday? As I was saying to Ray yesterday, that we look at things in a probabilistic manner, don't we? We effectively say, what's the probability of this phone being better than this phone? We're not certain, but we operate our lives in terms of who we marry, or what foods we end up buying, or what shop we end up going to, or what flights we take, or holidays we go on, or what bed we buy, or what pen we buy. We do a bit of research or whatever. We operate on a probabilistic manner. So we say, okay, on balance of probability, the information that I have, the opinions of people that I've read, the reviews that I have seen, I think this laptop looks pretty good. Okay. Or this phone looks pretty good, or this internet connection looks pretty good. Right? Do you know what I mean? That's how we operate our whole lives, you see.
I think Ray, didn't he say he admitted that he looked more into his television than he did Islam?
Yeah. I mean, he was a nice guy. He was very honest. You know, he said he spent more time researching what phone to buy or what TV to buy than whether religion was true or not true. And he was very honest and very straightforward. And I was quite happy that, because, you know, he didn't try to. I think he realized where I was going. You see,
Yeah. I thought he was all right. I thought he was fine. I thought he was.
he's a very nice guy, and he didn't try to, you know, yeah. He didn't try to sort of be dishonest or to cover his tracks or whatever. I think he knew exactly where I was leading him to. But I think he realized, I think he was quite honest, and he realized that actually, you know what, you know, researching your phone is all well and good. Researching what laptop or what bed to buy or car to drive, whatever, it's important. It's good. I'm not saying it's not. But clearly, you know, the more important an issue, the more impact an issue can have in your life or in your hereafter, okay? Surely that issue is going to be the most important issue that a human being needs to investigate. And accordingly, rather than go on a couple of videos on YouTube or, I don't know, read The God Delusion by Dawkins, who has his own agenda, has his own biases, okay? Rather than just go to those avenues, wouldn't it be better to study a little bit? I mean, like you, for example, Jordan, you know, you took the time to actually say, well, let me look into this, okay? Let me study, let me see what arguments they put forward. And alhamdulillah, you decided that if it was the truth and if it convinced you and there were fundamentally good reasons for accepting it, that alhamdulillah, you would accept it. And subhanallah, today, Allah has blessed you with Iman. You became a Muslim a couple of years ago, mashallah. And, you know, your life's changed, right, as a consequence. But that was because you embarked on a journey to find the truth, to uncover the truth. And then, of course, Allah opened your heart to the truth. But if you're sincere, and this is the thing, you see, if you're sincere and you put in the time, you put in the effort, you put in the struggle, you know, then inshallah, Allah will open your heart up. The truth will become evidently true, you know, because Allah says in the Quran that truth stands out from error, from wrong, something that's of error. Allah has made this that it will become evidentially true to you, that you will realize that it's the truth. But you have to spend a little bit more time than researching a phone or researching, you know, a laptop or a car or something like that, which makes sense, right?
Yeah. I think for me, Abbas, I think the very fact that, see, one thing I'll make sure is I didn't want to be Muslim. And when I mean that, I mean in my mindset at the time, it was going to have a lot of, you know, I hadn't looked into it enough, but I was on the track. I was sort of on the track for looking at it. So I was researching, I was getting really engrossed in it, but I was fighting it as well at the same time. But I think the fact that, you know, the Quran claims to be the word of God, and it challenges you to read it, and it's only a book about that thick.
Yeah.
I mean, one thing I was surprised. Two things I was surprised I never knew that, because I thought there were religious books, there's the Bible, the Quran. I had no idea that the Quran was actually saying, this is the word of God. This is the word of your Creator sent down. And then the Prophet, peace upon him, I had to start to look into his character and what he did and his example. And I think, yeah, I think it can only really, to me, if you've got an open mind, it can only really lead you one way. And I think, but even if you don't embrace Islam, and that's why I get confused when you see a lot of people hating Islam, at the very least, you must respect it. I don't, you know, unless you're cherry picking verses and taking things out of context, I don't see how you can't look at Islam and think, wow, you know, I respect that, even if you don't believe it. Do you know what I mean?
No, I totally agree with you. And look, if you're a clever person, and let's say you hate religion, you hate Islam, whatever, right? But you're a clever person. You're a person who has a little bit of introspection. You tend to be a little bit critical in your thinking. You want to really go where the data goes. You don't just want to, you know, follow the whims of others. You know, you're not a sheep. You're not just a follower. You're a thinker, all right? Look at the people around the world that hated Islam. Absolutely were actively actively working to take Islam out of Europe. You know, like the chap who was working with Wilders.
Yes.
Gert Wilders. Yeah, I forget his name actually.
Yeah, the bald guy that converted in the end, didn't he?
Right. He said, I mean, this is the interesting thing now. Look at this, right? He said, I wanted to study Islam so I could attack it even more because I'd have the knowledge to be able to do that.
Yeah. And I'll be honest,
So his intention was to try to destroy Islam.
My original intention was to tell my family that my niece shouldn't be Muslim.
Yeah.
Again, it's going from that angle of, guys, this can't be right. So
yeah. So he basically he embarks on a journey to dismantle Islam out of Europe. He wants it to go out of Europe, basically, right? He's a politician. He's an intelligent, he's an articulate and educated man, okay? And upon his journey to try to destroy Islam, Islam destroys the myths and the hate that he had and transforms him from a hater to a lover of this religion, and he accepts Islam. Now, if you're a clever person, Jordan, right, wouldn't you at least think to yourself, you know, let me investigate, let me find out, how does an enemy of Islam start to learn about Islam, immerses himself in the knowledge of Islam, and instead of hating this religion more, instead of strengthening his conviction to dismantle and to remove Islam from Europe, how can it have the opposite effect on him? How can it have the opposite effect that this person actually then ends up accepting Islam, and now he's talking about Islam in public to people as to how wrong he was and how it opened his eyes to the truth? Now, if you're a clever person and a person who has some introspection, wouldn't you at least say, you know, let me at least look at what it was that this chap found out, because maybe, just maybe, my perception, you know, my knowledge of Islam might be completely wrong, okay? Maybe what I heard was not true. Maybe what I was shown was not truly representative of what this religion is, okay? That's what a clever person would do. That's what a humble person seeking knowledge, person seeking the truth would do, okay? But if you just want to be the sheep, you know, you just want to be led along the way, you know, and you don't want to think for yourself, then you're going to find reasons, even if those reasons are untrue, to try to nullify that person who accepted Islam. Like, you get a lot of hate yourself, right? Oh, you must have been, you know, you must have been lacking in your life, you know, you must have been like a druggie or something, or you were losing out, you know, and Islam suddenly became your crutches. You know, you sort of needed Islam just to find some sort of peace and fulfillment because you were lost. You know, when you actually study the people who come into Islam, the Gallup poll, I think it was the Gallup poll that did it, or the Mori poll, I can't remember. I think it was the Gallup poll. They found that the average age was 27. They found out that these people were, at the average education was postgraduate, that they were degree holders, they were educated people, right? And it found that these people were working and they were successful. Okay, and the average time they spent was around 7 years studying comparative religions. And 72% of them were women. Now, a clever person would think to themselves, well, you know what? It goes against every stereotype that we're being told about Islam and about the people that accept Islam. So maybe, just maybe, I should study it a little bit more than what phone to buy, or what car to drive, or what holiday to go on. A sensible person, I think. I mean, is that unreasonable? What do you think, Jordan? Is that unreasonable for me to think like that?
No, I completely agree. I don't know where it comes from. This, you know, you have to be from prison, depressed, ginger hair. You know, people ask me if I dye my hair. Am I really? My response is always the gingers are blessed. You know, they're the ones coming to Islam. Then they're the blessed people. They're not the. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if it's media only showing. You know, because you do often see, you know, these radical white Muslims that there'll be a couple and they'll always be on the news, for instance. But like you say, most of the people that convert to Islam, they're not all on YouTube like myself with a channel. They're just intelligent people getting on with their lives, submitting to their creator, and they carry on life as normal. Well, when I say normal, you know, following Islamic rules.
And that's the beauty of Islam. The beauty of Islam is that you can be a young, successful Englishman or English woman. You know, you could be, you could be culturally, still who you are. Islam doesn't strip you of that. But Islam provides a framework where there's certain tweaking. You know, obviously Allah has made certain things haram and Allah has made certain things halal. And of course, there's no denying that there is a transformation in a person's life in terms of their values. This is understandable, because if those values come from God and they are a way of life, then of course there are going to be changes in a person's life. But, you know, I feel very attached to England, and I'm not a white Englishman, you know, that's had ties to this country for many hundreds of years of, you know, many generations. But I love this country because it's my home, because I was born here. You know, when I was young, I was watching Only Fools and Horses and the Dick Emery show and Benny Hill and all of that stuff. I mean, that's what I grew up on, right? That was my humor. And so, you know, watching Del Boy and, you know, all these things. I mean, this is what we grew up on. This is what we understand. This is the sort of jokes that we make and we laugh about and we enjoy. And we, you know, and this culture is very much, many aspects of this culture is who I am, because I, you know, if you're born and absorbed in a culture, that's just how you are, you know. But at the same token, you can have your English identity, your Italian identity. Allah says in the Quran that we made you into different tribes, different colors, different tribes, different people. You know, Allah has created us with these differences, okay? But these differences are so that you may know one another, not that you may persecute one another, look down upon or oppress one another. This was not the reason why Allah created us different. So you can still be the Englishman, you can still be the Irishman, the Italian, you know, the Scot, right? But you can also believe in the creator of Adam, the creator of Noah and Abraham and Moses and Jesus and Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon all of them. You can believe in the prophets of God. You can believe in the revelations that were sent down. And you can adhere to the teachings of the creator. But you can still be who you are. It doesn't strip you of that, you know.
I need to first apologize and then also commend Mukeet. This has actually gone live on 2 channels. It's live on mine as well. I pressed the wrong button, I think.
Okay, mashallah.
So we've actually got 130 here, and there's 30 people on.
Oh, mashallah, fantastic. Okay. Well, we were supposed to be doing a 10-minute. We were supposed to be doing a 10-minute chat, and then we've just got carried away as usual, you know.
But mashallah. Well, I always enjoy it, Abbas. Always enjoy the convo. I'm looking forward to tomorrow. Sabor, a lot of respect for that brother. And he's got his own channel, so do subscribe to Darwinian Delusions. He, like us, Abbas, he's doing a lot of live streams to keep people entertained over the lockdown. I know he's got a lot of guests on. He had John Fontaine on the other day.
Okay.
Various. He had a guy yesterday that had translated the Quran. Oh,
mashallah, wonderful. Yeah, so no, inshallah, we'll look forward to that tomorrow. We'll I suppose end the live stream now because obviously it's nearly an hour. Alhamdulillah, we're supposed to do it 5 10. Sorry.
Look how long you lasted above water. It's a good sign.
Yeah, no, subhanallah. I hope this is a sign.
Yeah.
I hope, inshallah, that this is a sign for tomorrow, and that it stays hopefully just as good, if not better, tomorrow, which would be wonderful. But that's why I sort of forwarded you the questions, just on the off chance that my connection dies on me, and then hopefully, inshallah, the show can go on, as they say, inshallah.
Yeah, thanks to Makit for modding both sides. He's having to go across both channels, moderating.
Yeah, much love. This brother Makit, he's done a lot of work, and
on the stream, we're all discussing, weren't we? You're coming onto the stream soon, Makit, with us.
Yeah, we're very grateful to, mashallah, the brother who's done so much, mashallah. And just another little reminder before we go, I know we're going to do it tomorrow as well, but we really want to translate. We've got, I think, over 700 videos, I think, on, is that right? Am I mistaken? Possibly mistaken, yeah, but
you're right.
We've got hundreds of videos on YouTube, and I think we've, mashallah, translated a lot into, certainly into Arabic. We've got an Arabic channel, mashallah, that's a lot of brothers in, there's over, I think, 250 odd million Arab speaking people, mashallah, and that channel is doing very well. We've got people translating in Arabic. We've got people then, we get it checked by an independent person to make sure it's accurate, and then alhamdulillah, it all goes live. And generally the cost of these things is about $1 per minute. And so we'd like to translate more videos, inshallah, in more languages. And I know that there's some have been done in Spanish and Kurdish. There's a Kurdish channel, I think, that's starting. Alhamdulillah, we're going to be doing them in Kurdish as well. But I really want to do some in Japanese and possibly in Turkish and Cantonese, Mandarin. And so, inshallah ta'ala, if anyone would like to, Anis is going to make a list of all the videos that we would like to translate, because some have obviously already been done. And if the brothers or sisters want to say, okay, either 2 or 3 of us will get together and we will translate that particular video, then we can actually allow them to either pay the translators directly. So it's $1 per minute, plus I think $10 to check the video. But Anis will, like a small video that's 30 minutes, it would cost $30 to do the subtitles in a different language, and then maybe $10 to check the video. Obviously, if it's an hour-long video, it's $60, I think, plus $10 or $15, whatever it is, to check it. But Anis will give the breakdown. And inshallah ta'ala, we will then hopefully get the message out to as many different people around the world. We're planning to do another video, inshallah ta'ala. We want to try to bring in a lot of da'is to do that one, inshallah, possibly all of the people that are generally in Speaker's Corner. So that's something we're working on, inshallah ta'ala. But I'll keep that as a surprise, and we're going to try and do a good video, inshallah, with that. But alhamdulillah, your help to get the message out is alhamdulillah very much needed and very much appreciated. So jazakallah khair to all those who are on the PayPal, and I think on the where they can do these contributions, which helps us to translate these videos, mashallah, and do a lot of other work out there. So inshallah, I'll try to get Anis to make that list so we can actually have brothers and sisters maybe selecting particular videos, inshallah, Yeah.
So there's PayPal and there's a Patreon, isn't there? That people.
That's right, PayPal, Patreon, and it all, alhamdulillah, all of it goes towards the Dawa. So, but if the brothers and sisters, as I say, they feel comfortable to simply go directly with our translator and say, okay, I'd like to pay the translators for a particular video. Alhamdulillah, we have no problem with that. We're completely transparent on that. It's all fi sabilillah, just for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, inshallah, to do the da'wah, inshallah.
Yeah, and I think even, if you can't financially donate, I think sharing the channel is also,
yes,
they can help share it amongst your people.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Sometimes, in fact, the sharing and the help in just pushing the video out to different people around the world, friends, family, whatever, that can be a huge mashallah benefit. And remember that everyone then through that particular chain that watches that video and perhaps inshallah ta'ala with Allah's guidance and hidayah benefits from it, then all of those people, inshallah ta'ala, the good deeds, the thawab that they do, Allah will give you an equal share in that as well, inshallah ta'ala. So it's mashallah really a good way to sort of spread the word, inshallah ta'ala. So all right.
So I'd like to just tell everyone actually that Sabor is live now with Abdullah Al-Andalusi, who I've heard of, but I can't say I know too much about.
Yeah, he's a Portuguese, mashallah, converted quite a few years ago, and very, very, mashallah, very articulate, very, very, mashallah, scholarly, very well respected within the Dawa field, mashallah.
So pass our salams to Sabor. Say EFDawah, say hello.
Yeah. Assalamu alaikum. Yeah.
Tomorrow.
All right, Jordan. Thank you for that.
It was a pleasure.
Jazakallah to everyone. Assalamu alaikum. See you tomorrow at 5:30.